Everyone, this is Elizabeth Root, and this is my podcast, Dark Mystery Daisy of Death. This is my second episode, and it is about the Westboro Baptist Church, which is located in Topeka, Kansas. The Westboro Baptist Church is a controversial, and widely criticized group based in Topeka, Kansas. It was founded in 1955 by Fred Phelps and is known for its extreme views and inflammatory protest. The church is not affiliated with the mainstream Baptist organizations and is classified as a hate group by organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center. Get the key facts about Westboro Baptist Church. The core beliefs. The group adheres to a strict interpretation of Calvinist theology. It believes in the concept of predestination, where only a select few are chosen by God for salvation. Their messages often center on condemnation and hatred towards various groups, including the LGBTQ+ community, other religions, and the U.S. military protests. The WBC gained national attention for picketing signs, including those of those soldiers with inflammatory swords, with slogans such as "God hate fags" and "Thank God for 9/11." They claim these protests are intended to warn people about God's wrath and consequences of sin. Legal challenges. The church has been involved in numerous legal disputes. In 2011, the Supreme Court upheld their right to protest under the First Amendment. In the case of Snyder v. Phelps, affirming their freedom of speech. Members of the WBC is a small, tightly knit group primarily composed of Phelps' extended family. Defectors from the church, including some of Phelps' children, have spoken out against its practices and described its cultures as abusive and controlling. Fred Phelps' death. Fred Phelps died in 2014. Reports surfaced that he was excommunicated from the church shortly before his death for advocating a softer approach towards other public backlash. The church had faced widespread condemnation from religious groups and political leaders and the general public. Counter-protests and campaigns such as planting Peace Equality House, a rainbow-colored house located across the street, have gained significant support. Despite the notoriety, the WBC's influence remains limited due to its small size and fringe status. Their activities have sparked ongoing debates about the balance between free speech and hate speech. The Westboro Baptist Church follows strict self-imposed rules based on their interpretation of the Bible. These rules govern both the behavior of members and the church's activities. Below are some key principles and rules commonly associated with the WBC. Obedience. Internal rules for members. Obedience to leadership. Members are expected to strictly follow the teachings and directives of the church leaders, particularly the Phelps family. Strict biblical interpretations. The WBC adheres to its own literal interpretation of the Bible, which guides all aspects of life and behavior. No tolerance for deceit. Questioning the church's authority or beliefs often result in excommunication or shunning, even for family members. Separation from the world. Members are discouraged from forming close relationships with non-members or engaging in secular activities that don't align with the church doctrine. Modesty and sobriety. Members are expected to dress modestly, avoid drinking alcohol, and refrain from behavior deemed worldly. Participation in protests. All members, including children, are required to participate in the church's picketing activities as a form of evangelism. Rules for protest. Use of signs and slogans. Protesters will use proof signs, inflammatory signs such as God hates, whatever they want to have on the sign. Thank God for, and it's whatever tragedy. Targeting public events. WBC protests focuses on high-profile events, including funerals, concerts, and public celebrations to maximize visibility. While the protests are controversial, the WBC ensures their activities compel with legal laws to avoid arrest or shutdowns. No violence. Members are instructed not to physically harm others, even during counter-protests. Their actions are limited to verbal expressions and signage. Excommunication rules. Shunning of ex-members. Individuals who leave or are expelled from the church are cut off entirely, including from family members who remain in the church. Strict zero-tolerance policies. Any perceived violation of the church's teachings, such as sympathizing with outsiders or showing leniency toward sinners, can result in excommunication. Beliefs that influence the rules. Predestination. Members believe only a small predetermined group of people will be saved, and that their protests are a way to warn the world of God's judgment. Hostility towards outsiders. They view non-members as inherently unworthy of God's mercy unless they repent according to WBC's teachings. Anti-LGBTQ+ views. The WBC is known for extreme opposition to LGBTQ+ individuals, which they believe is a core element of the religious doctrine. These rules practices have contributed to the WBC's widespread notoriety and criticism, even among other religious groups. The Church remains unapologetic about its methods and message, citing the First Amendment as their shield for their controversial activities. The beliefs of the Westboro Baptist Church are based on literal and extremist interpretations of the Bible, combined with Calvinist theology. Below the key beliefs: theological beliefs. Predestination. The WBC teaches that God has predetermined who will be saved, the elect, and who will be damned. They believe most of humanity is destined for eternal punishment, God's wrath. They emphasize God's wrath and judgment over his love and mercy, focusing on the idea that God punishes sin with disasters, tragedies, and death. Literal biblical interpretation. The Church follows a strict literal reading of the Bible, interpreting verses without consideration for the historical or cultural context. Salvation for the elect only. Salvation is reserved for a small group of chosen individuals who strictly adhere to the WBC's teachings. Views on society morality. Anti-LGBTQ stance. Westboro Baptist believes that homosexuality is one of the greatest sins and that the LGBTQ+ individuals are specifically condemned by God. Judgment of sinners. They claim that events such as natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and pandemics are God's punishment for societal acceptance of sin, particularly homosexuality and other behaviors they consider immoral. Condemnation of other religions. The WBC views all the Christian denominations as well as other religions as false and irredeemable. Anti-American sentiment. Despite being based in the U.S., they believe America is cursed by God for tolerating sin, particularly LGBTQ+ rights and abortion, rejection of earthly pleasures. They denounce activities by sides they considered worldly, such as materialism, secular music, and entertainment, protesting and evangelism, picketing as a command. They view picketing with inflammatory signs as a divine duty to warn the world of God's judgments. WBC members often picket funerals of soldiers, celebrities, victims of tragedies, claiming these events are direct signs of God's wrath. Public shaming. They believe shaming individuals and groups publicly is an act of love, as it is supposedly willing them to repent. Views on family and membership. Strict family control. Families are expected to follow the church's teachings without question. Those who dissent are shunned, even if they are close relatives. Children's roles. Children are raised within the church to participate in picketing and to adopt the WBC beliefs from an early age. Views on love and forgiveness. Love is strict adherence. The WBC defines love as strictly following their interpretation of God's commands, which include condemning sin and sinners. Forgiveness is conditional. They believe the big forgiveness is only possible for those who fully repent and adopt their beliefs. Their beliefs and exclusivism. God hates sinners. They frankly have signs such as God hates fags and God hates America, reflecting their belief that they alone have the truth and are God's chosen people. Isolationism. WBC members believe they are set apart from the world and are only ones destined for salvation. The WBC beliefs made them one of the most controversial and universal condemned religious groups in the world, criticized even by other conservative Christian organizations. The Westboro Baptist Church enforces strict rules within its community and imposes severe punishment for members who deviate from its beliefs or behavior standards. These punishments are rooted in God's authoritarian structure and little interpretation of the Bible. Below are the key forms of punishment practiced by the WBC. Excommunication. Members who dissent and question God's church's leadership or violate its strict rules are often excommunicated. Excommunication involves complete separation from the church and its members, including close family, who are instructed to shun the individual. Shunning. Excommunicated individuals are shunned entirely by current members, including spouses, parents, and children. This form of punishment is intended to isolate individuals socially and emotionally, making it difficult for them to maintain relationships outside the church. Public humiliation. Members who are perceived to have sinned or strayed from subject to public reprimands during the church services or private meetings. This tactic is used to instill fear and enforce conformity. Loss of community privileges. Those who disobey the church rules may lose certain privileges within the group, such as participation in protest or church activities. Emotional manipulation. Members are often subject to psychological tactics designed to instill guilt and fear of God's wrath if they disobey. Leaving the church is equivalent with eternal damnation, creating emotional pressure to remain loyal. Familiar punishments. Families within the church are often divided if one of the members decides to leave or is excommunicated. The remaining members are forbidden from maintaining contact with the individual. Parents and siblings and spouses are expected to cut ties completely. Increased workload or isolation. Members who exhibit minor infractions may be assigned to additional responsibilities or are isolated from others as a form of corrective punishment. Threats of eternal damnation. Members are often taught that disobedience or leaving the church will result in eternal damnation and God's wrath. Reinforcing fear as a tool for control. Punishment for non-members. While the WBC doesn't directly punish non-members, they often target the outsiders with inflammatory protests and verbal condemnation. Their actions serve as a form of public shaming for those they consider sinners. Impact of punishments. The WBC's punitive culture has led many former members to describe the church as abusive and cult-like. Ex-members have recounted experiences of emotional trauma, family estrangement, and long-term psychological harm due to the church's strict and punitive practices. Fred Phelps, the founder of the Westboro Baptist Church, had a complex and controversial background that significantly influenced the foundation of ideology of the church. Below are the key details of his early life. Full name: Fred Walden Phelps Sr. November 13th, 1920. Born on November 13th, 1929 in Meriden, Mississippi, USA. Phelps was the son of Fred Wade Phelps and Catherine Johnson. His mother died when he was a young child, and he was raised by his father and stepmother. Phelps grew up in a Methodist family, but later became a Baptist after experiencing a religious conversion during his teen years. Education: high school. Phelps was academically gifted and graduated from Meriden High School. He briefly attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, but dropped out. Theological training: Phelps studied at Bob Jones University and later the Primary Bible Institution in Canada, but didn't graduate from neither institution. He earned a law degree from Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas in 1964. As a lawyer, Phelps became a civil rights attorney in the 1960s, initially gaining attention for fighting racial discrimination cases, particularly in Topeka, Kansas. Over time, his legal career was marked by confrontational tactics and professional misconduct, leading to his disbarment in 1979. His disbarment stemmed from accusation of unethical behavior, including harassment of witnesses and inappropriate conduct during trials. As a preacher, Phelps founded the Westboro Baptist Church in 1955. The church began as an offset of a larger Baptist denomination that later became independent under his leadership. He developed the church's strict Calvinist theological and focused on condemnation, emphasizing God's wrath and judgment. Find the Westboro Baptist Church. Foundation: Phelps established the WBC in Topeka, Kansas as a family-run institution. Most of the members were his relatives. The church became known for extreme views on morality and sin, particularly its anti-LGBTQ+ stance. Under Phelps' leadership, the church began its infamous protests targeting high-profile events, funerals, and other public gatherings. Marriage: Phelps married Marjorie Marie Sims in 1952. They had 13 children, many of whom became active members of the church. Family dynamics: the Phelps family was deeply involved in the church activities, but some eventually left and spoke out against the abuse and control they experienced. Conflict and crime: Phelps' leadership style and ideology made him one of the most hated figures in America. His inflammatory rhetoric grew widespread condemnation even from other religious groups. In 2014, he was reported that Phelps had been excommunicated from the WBC shortly before his death. Allegedly, this was due to a disagreement with the church leaders about softening of the church stance on certain issues. Death: on March 9th, 2014, at the age of 84, Phelps died in Topeka, Kansas, from natural causes. His death marked a significant moment for the WBC, but the church continued its activities under the leadership of his children. Fred Phelps left behind a legacy of controversial hatred, and while his early career as civil rights attorney seemed promising, his later years as preacher and protester overshadowed these efforts. The church he founded remains one of the most polarizing religious organizations in the world. The history of the Westboro Baptist Church is marked by its controversial founding and extreme beliefs, polarizing activities. Below is a detailed storyline of the church's history and its development. Early founding in early years. 1959, the Westboro Baptist Church was founded by Fred Phelps in Topeka, Kansas. It began as a small offset of the East Side Baptist Church, where Phelps initially served as an associate pastor. Over time, he broke away to form his own independent congregation. Initially, the church functioned like any other conservative Baptist congregations, with a focus on strict adherence to biblical teachings. It had a small membership, mostly composed of Phelps' family and close associates. 1960s to 1950s, the civil rights advocacy and legal career. During the 1960s, Phelps and the WBC were involved in civil rights cases, advocating for racial equality and fighting against segregation in Kansas. Phelps gained prominence as civil rights attorney, but his confrontational style and his ethical violations led to his eventual disbarment in 1979. After losing his law license, Phelps focused his efforts entirely on his church, shifted extremism. During the 1980s, the Westboro WBC began adopting more extreme theological views, focusing heavily on God's wrath and the condemnation of sins. The church distanced itself from the mainstream Baptist dominations and became increasingly insular, consisting primarily of Phelps' extended family. Waves of controversy. The 1990s. 1991, the church conducted its first infamous protest against the LGBTQ plus individuals at Gage Park in Topeka, Kansas, claiming that homosexuality was the root cause of all societal decline. Anti-LGBTQ plus campaigns. The WBC adopted the slogan "God hates fags," which became a central theme for the protests. The provocative nature of the protests, combined with inflammatory signs and slogans, garnered widespread media coverage, thrusting the church into a national spotlight. Protesting legal battles, 1990s to 2000s. Targeting funerals. The WBC gained notoriety for picketing funerals of the AIDS victims, military personnel, and public figures, claiming these deaths were divine punishment for societal sins. Legal challenges. The church faced numerous lawsuits, attempts to restrict their protests. They frequently defended their actions under the First Amendment. Snyder v. Phelps in 2011, the USA Supreme Court ruled in favor of the WBC, affirming the right to protest publicly, even at funerals, under the protection of free speech. Family dynamics and internal conflicts. The WBC remained a family-run organization, with the Phelps children and grandchildren playing key roles. Several members of the Phelps family, including Fred Phelps' children, left the church over the years, citing abuse, control, and disagreement with the church's idolatry. Defectors such as Nate Phelps and Megan Phelps Roper have spoken out against the church due to the emotional and psychological toll of growing up in such an environment. In 2014, reports emerged that Fred Phelps was excommunicated from the WBC shortly before his death, allegedly for advocating for a softer approach towards outsiders. On March 19th, 2014, Fred Phelps passed away at the age of 84. His death marked a turning point for the church. Through its activities, continue under the leadership of his family. Modern era, post-2014. After Fred Phelps' death, the church continued to protest but faced declining membership, increasing public backlash. In 2013, a non-profit organization painted a house directly across the street in rainbow colors to promote LGBTQ plus rights and counter the WBC message. Ongoing protests. The WBC remains active, targeting high-profile events, funeral celebrations through their influence, and membership has dwindled. The WBC is is regarded as a hate group. Organizations such as the Southern Poverty Law Center. Their activities have spiked debates about balance between free speech and hate speech, as well as the psychological impact on the protests on victims and their families. Despite their notoriety, the church remains small and isolated with limited influence outside its immediate circle. The church is now led by surviving members of the Phelps family with a focus on continuing their protest-based evangelism. Public opposition to the WBC has grown significantly with counter-protest and awareness campaigns regularly challenging their activities. The WBC remains one of the most controversial religious groups in the U.S., known for its inflammatory rhetoric and protests or any meaningful theological contributions. 7 members of the Westboro Baptist Church, as including Keenan Phelps' own family, has left the group over the years. The reasons for leaving often reflect the church's extreme idolaters and abusive environment and authoritarian nature. Below are important reasons why people have left the WBC. Disagreement with the church. Extreme views. Many members grew uncomfortable with the church's hateful rhetoric and inflammatory protests, particularly its targeting of the LGBT plus individuals, shoulders, and other groups. Some ex-members begin to see the church's actions as unkind, unloving, and contrary to their personal understanding of faith and morality, humanizing others. Interactions with outsiders during protests often led members to question the WBC's harsh stance against those they are taught to condemn. Authoritarian leadership. Control by Fed Phelps. Fed Phelps maintained strict control over the churches and its members, which some found offensive. Members are expected to follow his directives without questions. No individuality. The WBC demanded complete obedience, leaving no space for personal beliefs, opinion, and dissent. Psychological and emotional abuse. Toxic relationship. Environment. Former members have described the church's culture as emotional abusive, with public shaming and manipulation and intimidation used to enforce compliance. Fear-based doctrine. Members were frequently reminded of the eternal damnation awaiting those who disobeyed or left, creating a climate of fear. Family estrangement. Shunning. The WBC's policy of cutting ties with those who leave often left former members estranged from their families. Witnessing family members being excommunicated or treated harshly caused some of the members to question the church's practices. Exposure to the outside world. Some former members created the internet and exposure to the outside perspectives for helping them see flaws in the church's teachings. Interaction with outsiders. The counter-protesters and conversation with outsiders often challenge members' beliefs and force them to reconsider their worldview. Disillusionation with the leadership. Fed Phelps excommunication. Reports that Fed Phelps himself was excommunicated for advocating for a softer approach caused some members to question the leadership's consistency and motives. Some ex-members believe witnessing hypocrisy among leaders or realizing the church's practices don't align with its own teachings. Desire for personal freedom. Strict lifestyle. The WBC imposed rigid rules about behavior in relationships and activities, leaving many members feeling trapped. Breaking free. Leaving the church often represented a desire for personal autonomy and the ability to make independent choices. Concern for future generations. Impact on children. Some members left because they didn't want their children to grow up, but they viewed as harmful environment. Cycle of abuse. Witnessing the indoctrination and pressure placed on children led some parents to break away. Notable films left. Nate Phelps, a son of Fred Phelps, Nate left the church at age 18. He has since become an outspoken critic of the WBC and advocate for the LGBTQ plus rights, sharing his experience of abuse and control. Megan Phelps Roper, a granddaughter of Fred Phelps, Megan left in 2012 after questioning the church teachings through interactions on Twitter. She has been a vocal critic of the church and an advocate for empathy and understanding. Grace Phelps Roper, another granddaughter, Grace left the church along with Megan, citing similar reasons for her departure. Other factors. Over the years, several other members and close associates have left, often sharing similar stories of disillusionment and abuse and emotional abuse and a desire for freedom. Challenges of leaving. Many former members face estrangement from families still in the church. They often rebuild their lives outside the insular world of the WBC, learn to navigate relationships, education, and work in mainstream society. Public backlash against the church sometimes extends to former members, making their transitions even more difficult. Leaving the WBC often a profound and life-changing decision for members, representing a break from not only the church but often their families, communities, and ingrained beliefs. Many who may leave go on to advocate for kindness, empathy, and understanding, drawing on their experiences within the church. Members of Westboro Baptist Church, WBC, has been excommunicated for various reasons, typically tied to violations of the church strict rules distinct against its leadership or perceived disloyalty. Below are the most common reasons why people were kicked out of the WBC. Questioning leadership. Fred Phelps' authority. Members who question Fred Phelps or the church leadership's decisions are often expelled. The church required absolute obedience to its leader. Dissent on teachings. Many disagreements with the WBC interpretation of the Bible or its extremist theology has seen as betrayal. Challenging doctrine. Softening of views. Members who express moral compassion or moderate views, such as advocating love or tolerance for outsiders, were seen as undermining the church's mission. Disagreeing with protest tactics. Some are compelled for criticizing the church's inflammatory signs, slogans, or decisions to protest at funerals and other events. Disobedience to church rules. Failure to attend protests. Participation in picketing was mandatory. Missing events without a valid reason will lead to expulsion. Breaking lifestyle rules. Members who engage in worldly behavior, such as drinking alcohol or dating non-members or consuming secular media, risk being kicked out. Associating with outsiders, friendships or relationships. Forming close ties with non-members, especially romantic relationships, was forbidden. Members who married or dated outsiders were often excommunicated. Sympathy for counter protesters. Showing empathy or kindness towards individuals of the church condemned would be seen as a betrayal, perceived betrayal of the church mission. Speaking against the church, publicly criticizing that WBC's practices, often privately among other members, was the grounds for immediate removal. Lack of commitment. Any behavior that suggests a wavering commitment to the church's mission, such as voicing doubts or hesitating to participate in protests, wasn't tolerated. The Fred Phelps excommunication. Fred Phelps case, 2014. Fred Phelps himself was reportedly excommunicated from the church he found shortly before his death. The alleged reason was his rejection to adopt a less confrontational approach and show moral kindness, which other church leaders rejected as betrayal of their core mission. Internal power struggles. The WBC is primarily composed of members of the Phelps family, and internal conflicts or rivalries would lead to expulsions. Challenging the leadership dynamics. As the leadership shifted to other family members, disagreements over control and decision-making sometimes result in excommunications. Disobedience to the church discipline. Failure to accept punishment. Members who resisted corrective actions such as public shaming or isolation were often expelled. Reported offenses: repeatedly breaking the church rules or failing to repent, perceived sins were the grounds for removal. Impact of communication: shunning. Excommunicated members were often completely cut off from their families and church community, often facing isolation and emotional pain. Damnation threats: those who kicked out were warned of eternal damnation and God's wrath for turning away from the church's teachings. Loss of support: because the WBC operates as a tightly knit and insecular group, excommunicated individuals were left to rebuild their lives without any support from their former community. Many of the former members often spoken out about the harshness and the brightness of these expulsions, which were often rooted in maintaining control and ensuring loyalty rather than fostering a supportive or forgiving environment. People who left: several prominent individuals, many of them were members of Fred Phelps' family, have left the Westboro Baptist Church over the years. Below are some of these notable people who left and the reasons for doing so. Nate Phelps. Relationship to Fred Phelps: Nate was one of Fred Phelps' sons. Reason for leaving: Nate left the church at age 18, citing physical and emotional abuse, authoritarian control, and disagreement with the church's teachings. After leaving, Nate became a vocal critic of the WBC, advocated for the LGBTQ plus rights and atheism. He has shared his experiences in interviews and speeches and writings. Key quote: Phelps has described the WBC as a cult that thrives on fear and control. Megan Phelps Roper. Relationship to Fred Phelps: Megan is a granddaughter of Fred Phelps. Reason for leaving: Megan left in 2012 after questioning the church's hateful rhetoric and extremist beliefs. Her doubts were fueled by interactions with outsiders on Twitter, which led to her reevaluate the church teachings. Life after leaving: Megan has since became a public speaker and advocate for empathy, dialogue, and understanding. She authored the memorial Unfollow, a memorial of loving and leaving the Westboro Baptist Church. Key quote: I was taught that we had the only truth, but I realized that love and compassion were missing. And that was a quote by Megan Phelps. Grace Phelps Roper. Grace is another granddaughter of Fred Phelps. Grace left along with her sister Megan, citing similar reasons of disillusionment with the church's idolatry and desire for freedom. And Grace has largely kept a low profile, but supports her sister Megan in advocating for change and understanding. Joss Phelps Roper. Joss is one of Phelps' grandsons. Reason for leaving: Joss left the WBC after questioning its teachings and experiencing harsh consequences of voicing dissent. After life living like others, Joss has distanced himself from the church's idolatry and has spoken out against its practices. Libby Phelps. Libby is another granddaughter of Fred Phelps. Reason for leaving: Libby left the church in 2009 due to psychological control of its hateful practices and her growing discomfort of its idolatry. Life after leaving: Libby became an advocate for kindness and participated in counter-protests against the WBC. She has shared her story on various platforms. And here's a quote by her: I realized I didn't want to hate anyone. Zach Phelps Roper. Zach is a grandson of Fred Phelps. Zach left in 2014, citing disagreements with the church's lack of compassion and his desire to explore life outside of its strict confines. Life after leaving, Zach has spoken publicly about emotional abuse he experienced in the church and his journey towards healing and understanding. Fred Phelps reportedly excommunicated Relationship Church founder and patriarch of the WBC. Reason for departure: in 2014, Fred Phelps was reportedly excommunicated by the church leadership, which included his own children, for suggesting that they adopt a more compassionate approach towards others. Impact: his excommunication remains controversial and is seen as a turning point in the church's history. Lauren Drain, relationship to the church. Lauren was not biologically related to the Phelps family, but joined the church with her family when she was 15. Reason for leaving: Lauren was excommunicated at the age of 22 for questioning the church's teachings and expressing doubts about its practices. Life after leaving: Megan wrote a memoir titled Banished, Surviving My Years in the Westboro Baptist Church, in which she recounts her experiences. She now advocates for acceptance and opposes the WBC's message. Other members left. Over the years, numerous lesser-known members of the WBC have left due to church's opposition, environment, and harsh punishments, and ragged control. Many former members choose to remain private about their experiences due to emotional trauma associated with their time in the church. Kind of things when those who left: disillusionment with hate. Many left after realizing that the church's message centered on more condemnation than compassion. Desire for freedom. The rugged control and isolations imposed by the church prompt members to seek independence and autonomy. Exposure to different perspectives. Interactions with outsiders, often during protests, cause some members to question the church's teachings. Abuse and trauma. Emotional, physical, and psychological abuse within the church played a significant role in motivating members to leave. Many members face significant challenges, including estrangement from their families and emotional trauma. The need to rebuild their lives. Despite these difficulties, many became advocates for kindness, empathy, understanding, and using their stories to counteract the WBC's hateful message. Several members of the Westboro Baptist Church were kicked out, excommunicated over the years for a variety of reasons. Below are a list of notable individuals who were expelled from the church, along with the reasons for expulsion. Fred Phelps was excommunicated, founder and patriarch of the WBC. In 2014, Fred Phelps was reportedly excommunicated by the church leadership, allegedly for advocating for a more compassionate approach towards outsiders. This must significant irony, as he was the creator of the church's extremist beliefs. His excommunication remains controversial and contributed to the speculation of internal power struggles within the church. Lauren Jane, a member who joined with her family as a teenager. Lauren was excommunicated at the age of 22 for questioning the church's teachings and practices. She was accused of being disloyal and of developed connections with outsiders. Impact: after her expulsion, Lauren wrote the memoir Banished, Surviving My Years in the Westboro Baptist Church, and became a vocal critic of the church. Marjorie Phelps, reportedly excommunicated, daughter of Fred Phelps and longtime member. While not publicly confirmed, reports suggest Marjorie was either excommunicated or voluntarily left due to internal disputes. Her departure came aimed shifting dynamics in the church's leadership. Impact: Marjorie's departure is less documented and compared to other former members, but it highlights ongoing divisions within the Phelps family. Catherine Phelps, reportedly excommunicated, daughter of Fred Phelps. Catherine was reportedly excommunicated for failing to adhere to the church's strict rules and standards. Like others who were expelled, Catherine faced complete estrangement from her family. Unnamed members. Many unnamed members, particularly extended family members, were excommunicated for crushing the church's doctrine or leadership, failing to participate in mandatory protests, showing compassion or kindness, or even showing kindness and compassion to outsiders, or engaging in worldly activities like forming romantic relationships outside of the church, consuming secular media, with excommunications. The WBC is known for its zero-tolerance policies, and members can be expelled for dissent, questioning, or challenging the church's leadership or beliefs, perceived disloyalty, expressing sympathy towards outsiders, or doubting the church's mission. Breaking rules, failing to participate in protests, engaging in sinful behavior, or deviating from the church's rugged lifestyle. Interpersonal conflicts. Disputes within the families often result in expulsions, such as the church's leadership is dominated by family members. Shunning. Excommunicated individuals are completely cut off from their families and the church community. Members are often ostracized, emotionally manipulated, often left to rebuild their lives without support. Psychological toll. Being expelled from the church, especially when it involves family estrangement, often leaves individuals with long-lasting emotional scars. The expulsions within the WBC reveal the authoritarian and insular nature of the group, where even minor dissent or disobedience can lead to permanent exile. Despite this, many expelled members have gone to rebuild their lives and speak out against the church practices. The Westboro Baptist Church is infamous for its inflammatory and hate-filled protest signs, which reflect the group's extremist beliefs. Their signs often feature provocative and offensive and oversimplified slogans aimed at condemning various groups and events. Below is a summary of the key themes and specific examples for their protest signs. Anti-LGBTQ messages. The WBC are most known for the condemnation of the LGBTQ plus community, which they claim as a primary target of wrath. Their signs include: God hate fags, one of the most infamous slogans. F die, God laughs. Thank God for age, same-sex marriage, marriage damns nations. God hate gay marriages. Anti-American sentiments. The WBC often protests American institutions, claiming the USA is cursed for tolerating sin. Their signs include: thank God for dead soldiers, God hates America, America is doomed, God blows up the troops, F the troops. Condemnation of other troops. The WBC targets religious groups they consider hypocritical, including Catholics, Jews, Muslims, and mainstream Christian denominations. Their signs include: the Pope is the Antichrist, God hates Jews, Islam is of the devil, priest rapes boys, your pastor is a lying whore. Responses to tragedies. The WBC had rightly condemned protesting at funerals, using tragedies to promote their hateful messages, and their signs include: thank God for 9/11, God sent the shooter, used at mass shooter sites, God sent Hurricane Katrina, thank God for dead kids, pray for more dead soldiers. General hate messages. The WBC's overarching theme is condemnation of humanity for its sins, and their signs include: God hates you, you're going to hell, God hates your tears, sin equals death, the world is doomed. Anti-entertainment industry. They have targeted celebrities, artists, and entertainment events, claiming their promotion immorality. Their signs include: God hates Hollywood, Lady Gaga is going to hell, Taylor Swift is a whore, thank God for dead celebrities. anti-government and political protests. The WPC protests against governments and politicians, accusing them of enabling sin. Obama equals Antichrist. God hates your flag. Biden brings God's wrath. Design of the signs. Bold and bright colors. The signs are designed to grab attention, often using large block letters and bright colors. Simple phrases. The slogans are cut or shown provocative, aimed at inciting anger and drawing media coverage. Lack of nuisance. The messages are deliberately inflammatory and lack theological or intellectual depth. Public backlash. The WC protest signs have drawn widespread condemnation from all corners of the society, including religious groups, activists, and the general public. Counter-protests. Activists and counter-protests often counter their hateful messages with messages of love and acceptance and in conclusions, such as God loves everyone, or God or love conquers hate. While the protest signs have brought notoriety to the WBC, they often isolate the group further, as their extreme rhetoric alienates those who might otherwise share their conservative religious views. The signs were more of a symbol of hate and intolerance than a tool for meaningful discourse. The Westboro Baptist Church has a long history of targeting The Westboro Baptist Church has a long history of targeting the Matthew Shepard Foundation and events associated with it. The protest began in 1998, following the tragic murder of Matthew Shepard, a gay university student of Wyoming student. Initial protest: Matthew Shepard's funeral, October 1998. Westboro, the WBC members protested at the Shepard funeral, displaying signs, hateful signs such as God hate fags and Matt is in hell. These acts garnered national attention and widespread condemnation. Significant protests: the 1990 trial of Aaron McKinney. During the trial of one of Shepard's cares, WBC protested outside the courthouse. In response, Ramona Peterson, a friend of Shepard, organized Angel Action, with participants dressed as angels with large rings to block protesters from public view. The Laramie Project Productions. The WBC has protested the opponents of the Laramie Project, a play that explores the aftermath of Shepard's murder. These protests often involve displaying offensive signs and shouting derogatory slogans. Impact on the Matthew Shepard Foundation. The WBC actions inadvertently gravitated support for the Matthew Shepard Foundation, leading to increased awareness and advocacy for the LGBTQ plus rights. The foundation continues to honor Matthew's legacy by promoting diversity, acceptance, and understanding through various educational programs and initiatives. Despite the WBC's ongoing protests, the foundation remains steadfast in its commitment to eradicating hate and fostering more inclusive society. The Westboro Baptist Church has the history of protesting associated with the Matthew Shepard Foundation, often targeting gatherings that honor Matthew Shepard's memory to advocate for the LGBTQ plus rights. Notable instances include university events. Colleges Charleston, October 2013. The WBC announced plans to picket a gay rights event in the College of Charleston, where Judy Shepard, Matthew's mother and founder of Matthew Shepard Foundation, was scheduled to speak. The protests intended to oppose the foundation's advocacy effects. Memorial services. Intermediate Washington National Cathedral, October 2018. On the 20th anniversary of Matthew Shepard's death, his remains intervened in Washington National Cathedral. The WBC has history of protesting events honoring Shepard, and they were concerned they might protest this service as well. Educational initiative. University of Pennsylvania, December 2009. The WBC protested outside the University Hillland Center in response to accusations and acceptance acceptance, barbecue to promote inclusive, inclusivity, and protect donations for the Matthew Shepard Foundation and the Anti-Defamation League. These actions by the WBC has been met with counter-protest, increased support for the Matthew Shepard Foundation, highlighting the organization's commitment to combating hate and promoting Westboro Baptist Church, known for its provocative and inflammatory protests, has targeted Taylor Swift on multiple occasions, accusing her of promoting immorality through music and public personnel. Below is a summary of the protest activities related to Taylor Swift. August 3rd, 2013, Kansas City, Missouri concert. In June 2013, the WBC announced plans to pick Taylor Swift concerts at the Sprint Center in Kansas City. On August 3rd, 2013, they accused of Swift hopping from one young man to the next and labeled her the harsh face of doomed America. Same as one of the WBC members. Ben Phelps, a member of the church, stated this girl is a horror. What she's famous as far as hopping around from one bed to another. The group criticized Swift for allegedly promoting fornication and failing to uphold what they consider Christian values. July 7th through 8th, 2023, Kansas City, Missouri concerts. The WBC announced intention to protest Taylor Swift concert at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City on July 7th and 8th, 2003. They circulated a flyer containing derogatory language towards Swift and referenced her song "You Need to Calm Down," suggesting it was about them. Fans known as Swifties were advised to ignore the protesters to prevent escalation. Attendees were encouraged to remain aware of their surroundings and not engage with the group. The WBC's in criticism of Taylor Swift. The WBC's protests against Taylor Swift are rooted in their perception that she promotes behaviors contrary to their interpretation of Christian values. Their main criticisms include allegations of promoting fornication. The WBC has accused Taylor Swift of using her music to advocate for premarital relationships, referring to her as a proud whore and criticizing her hopping from one young man to another. Influence on young fans. They expressed concern over Swift's significant influence on young audience, claiming she set a negative example by not promoting what they consider to be God's standards. The WBC's protests have been widely condemned by the public and media. Many view their actions as attention-seeking and not reflective of the mainstream Christian beliefs. Taylor Swift hasn't publicly responded to WBC protests. The Westboro Baptist Church has targeted Swift in their protests, particularly focusing on her concerts in Kansas City in 2013 and 2023. Their actions are part of a broader pattern of protests against public figures and events they deem contrary to their extremist views. Despite their efforts, these protests have been little to no impact on Swift's career or public image. The Westboro Baptist Church has protested many singers, musicians over the years, targeting them for their influence and popularity, perceived promotion of behaviors or beliefs of the WBC deemed sinful. Below is a list of notable singers Westboro protests for reasons and actions. Taylor Swift, reason for protest. The WBC accuses her of promoting immorality and setting a sinful example for young fans. They have criticized her relationships and lyrics. Protest events, multiple concerts, including a Kansas City performance in 2013 and 2023. Lady Gaga, reason for protest. WBC targeted Lady Gaga for her advocacy for the LGBTQ plus rights and themes in her music, which they viewed as promoting sin. Protest events, several concerts and public appearances. often with derogatory signs and slogans. Katy Perry, reason for the protest. The WBC criticized Katy Perry for the songs like I Kissed a Girl, which they claim promote sexual immorality. The protested events were concerts and public appearances. Beyonce. They accused Beyonce of promoting indecency and immorality through her music, dance, and public person. Protest events, high-profile concerts, and road shows. Elton John. As an openly gay artist and an LGBTQ plus advocate, Elton John has an frequent target of WBC's protest, and they protested his concert and other public appearances. Marilyn Manson. The WBC claims his music promotes Satanism and rebellion and immorality. They protest concerts and media events. Michael Jackson. WBC has criticized Michael Jackson for his lifestyle and the controversy surrounding his personal life. They protest events commemorating his life after his death in 2009. Prince. Reason for protests. Prince was targeted for his music and person, which was the WBC claimed encouraged sexual immorality and rebellion against Christian values. They protested public memorials and tributes after his death in 2016. Bob Dylan. Reason for the WBC targeted Bob Dylan for his influence in the counterculture movements, which they claimed promoted rebellion. Protested concerts and other appearances. Whitney Houston. The WBC accused Whitney Houston of living a sinful life and protested her funeral in 2012. Protested her funeral and tributes. Justin Bieber. Reason for protest. The WBC accused Bieber of promoting immorality to his young fan base, called him a bad influence. They protested his concerts and media events. Madonna. Madonna had been criticized for her provocative performances, music videos, and open discussion about sexuality and religion. They protested concerts and public appearances of hers. Pink. WBC protested Pink for her support for the LGBTQ plus rights and feminist themes in her music. They protested her concert and events. The Foo Fighters. The WBC had protested the Foo Fighters for promoting LGBTQ plus equality and tolerance. They protested the concerts where the band humorously counter-protest the WBC. Joan Jett. Reason for protest. The WBC accused Joan Jett of promoting LGBTQ plus rights and rebelling against traditional values. They protested public events and the concerts. Adam Lambert. As an openly gay singer, Adam Lambert had been targeted for his sexuality orientation and performances. They protested his concert and appearances. Rihanna. The WBC has criticized Rihanna for promoting what they consider immoral behavior through her music and image. They protested her concerts and public events. The Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, they targeted them for their outspoken political views, particularly the criticism of George W. Bush during the Iraq War. They protested concerts and their media appearances. Panic at the Disco. The WBC targeted the band for lyrics and performance they claim promoted immorality and secularism. Protested events, concerts and events. And then Harry Styles. The WBC had protested Harry Styles for his support for the LGBTQ plus rights and gender expression. They protested concerts in public and his public appearances. The WBC protested singers who they promoted behaviors or measures contrary to their strict interpretation of Christian doctrine. Their protests often involved inflammatory slogans, signs, and public discriminations aimed at drawing media attention. These actions have been widely condemned and have sparked counter-protests and responses from both the fans and artists themselves. The Westboro Baptist Church has also targeted actors actors and actresses in their protests focus on those who they believe they promote immorality and LGBTQ plus rights or behaviors they deem sinful. Below is a list of actors and actresses the WBC has protested the reasons behind their actions. Heath Ledger. The WBC protested Heath Ledger's death due to his portrayal of a gay kid in Brokeback Mountain. Protesters, they announced plans to boycott his funeral in 2008, claiming his role promoted sexual perversion. Robin Williams. The WBC accused Williams of mocking religion and promoting sin through his roles in comedic work. They threatened to protest his funeral after his death in 2014. George Clooney. Clooney has been targeted for his outspoken support for the LGBTQ plus rights and progressive political activism. They protested his public appearances and events. They protested the public appearances and events where Clooney was involved. Jennifer Lawrence. The WBC criticized Lawrence for her roles in movies like The Hunger Games and for being a symbol of modern and secular Hollywood. They premiered movie premieres and public events. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen is a frequent target due to her openly gay identity, her marriage to Portia de Rossi, and her promotion of the LGBTQ plus rights. They protest television appearances and events associated with Ellen. Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson. The WBC targeted them for their roles in the Twilight series, which they claimed promoted sinful themes like lust and rebellion. They protested the Twilight movie premieres and fan events. Robin Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds has been targeted for his portrayal of irrelevant and profound characters, particularly in the movies like Deadpool. They protested movie premieres and promotional events. Will Smith. The WBC had criticized Smith for his perceived support of the LGBTQ plus rights and roles they claimed promoted secular views. They protested various public events and movie premieres. Angela Jolie. Jolie had been criticized by the WBC for her humanitarian work and adoption of children from other countries and roles in movies they claim glorified violence and sin. They protested public appearances and movie premieres. Brad Pitt. Pitt had been a target due to his provocative political views, support of the LGBTQ rights, and the relationship with Angelina Jolie. They protested film events and other public appearances. Daniel Radcliffe. The WBC targeted Radcliffe for support of the LGBTQ plus rights and his association with the Harry Potter franchise, which they claim promotes witchcraft. They protested public events and premieres. Emma Watson. Watson had been criticized for her activism in gender equality and for her role in the Harry Potter franchise. They protested premieres and events related to her movies. Jim Carrey. Carrey had been targeted for his comedic roles, which the WBC claimed mocked religion and promote secularism. They protested public appearances and promotional events. Anne Hathaway. Hathaway had been criticized for her roles in movies like Les Miserables and her public support for the LGBTQ plus rights. Promoted erotic shorts and movie premieres. Oprah Winfrey. Reason for protest. The WBC has targeted Oprah for her influence and promotion of sex spirituality they consider New Age and anti-Christian. They protested public events and media appearances. Leonardo DiCaprio. They criticized DiCaprio for his roles in movies they claim glorified sin, such as The Wolf of Wall Street. They protested at public events and film festivals. Meryl Streep had been targeted for her political activism and roles in movies like that the WBC perceived as promoting liberal views. Protest events, award shows, and public appearances. Tom Hanks. The WBC had criticized Hanks for his roles in movies like The Philadelphia and his support for progressive causes. They protested at public events and tributes. Charlotte Johansson. Johansson has been targeted for her roles in movies that the WBC claimed promoted sexual immorality and sexualism. They protested movie premieres and public appearances. Jake Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal had been criticized for his role in Brokeback Mountain, which WBC viewed as promoting homosexuality. They protested movie premieres and promotional events. The WBC protested against actor and actresses after focusing on the LGBTQ activism, targeting individuals who supported LGBTQ plus rights or portrayed LGBTQ plus characters, holidays, and friends, criticizing performers for their perceived promotion of secularism and sexual morality or anti-Christian values. Progressive activism, protesting those who are vocal about humanity or political causes the WBC oppose. Despite these protests, the targeted individuals often ignore the WBC's actions, and the group's inflammatory rhetoric has been widely condemned by the public. The Westboro Baptist Church has become infamous for protesting events and tragedies they claim that are manifestations of God's wrath. They use these occasions to spread their inflammatory and hateful messages, targeting victims, families, and communities during the times of grief or celebration. Below are the list of events and tragedies the WBC has protested, along with their reasons. Funerals of U.S. soldiers. Reason: the WBC claimed the deaths of U.S. soldiers were a punishment for America's tolerance for the LGBTQ plus rights. Slogans used: thank God for dead soldiers. God hates America. God blew up the troops. Notable funerals of soldiers. Notable protests. Funerals of soldiers who were killed in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Public backlash led to legislation restricting protests near funerals. Respect for American Fallen Heroes Act. September 11th, 2021. 9/11 attacks. Reason for protest: the WBC called the attacks divine punishment for America's sins, particularly acceptance of the LGBTQ plus individuals. Slogans used: thank God for 9/11, God hates America. They protested memorials and events celebrating communicating the victims. Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. Reason for protest: the WBC claimed the massacre of 20 children and 6 adults was God's punishment for America's sins. Slogans used: God sent the shooter, thank God for dead kids. Notable actions: announced plans to protest the victims' funerals, which were met with overwhelming counter-protest. Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. Reason for the protest: WBC said the bombing, which killed 3 people and injured hundreds, were a result of America's tolerance of sin. Slogans used: God sent the bombers, thank God for the bombers. They announced plans to protest memorials and vigils that were heavily countered protests. LGBTQ plus pride events. Reason for protest: the WBC views the LGBTQ plus pride as a celebration of sin. So God hates fags, God cares. And notable actions: protests at pride events across the U.S. and public backlash often results in counter-protests promoting love and inclusion. Celebrity funerals. The WBC targeted celebrities they claimed live sinful lives of promoting immoral behavior. No protests. Michael Jackson, 2009, accused him of leading a preserved lifestyle. Whitney Houston, in 2012, claimed her death was a result of her sins. Heath Ledger, 2008, targeted for his role in Brokedown Mountain. Willie Williams, 2014, accused him of mocking religion in his comedy. Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016. WBC claimed the deaths of 49 LGBTQ individuals in Orlando nightclub shooting were justified as punishment for their lifestyles. Slogan reads, God sent the shooter, God hate facts. Announced plans to protest victims' funerals but faced widespread counter-protests. School shootings. The WBC attributed school shootings to God's wrath for the societal sins, and including LGBTQ plus acceptance and the removal of prayer from schools. Notable protests. Columbine High School, 1999, and Virginia Tech in 2007. National disasters. Reason for protest. They claim disasters were God's punishment for sin. Notable events. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 claimed it was a punishment for New Orleans' sinful culture. 2024 Indian Ocean tsunami declared it was a sin of God's wrath. The COVID-19 pandemic. Reason for protest. The WBC contributed the pandemic to global sin and intolerance of LGBTQ plus rights. Slogans used: God sent COVID-19. Thank God for the plague. They used the pandemic as a platform for spreading their rhetoric online and at public events. Supreme Court decisions. The WBC opposed decisions they believe promoted sin, such as those supporting the LGBTQ rights, abortion, and secularism. Notable cases: Oregon vs. Hodge, 2014, legalized same-sex marriage. Roe vs. Wade opposed an abortion rights. High-profile political events. Reason for protests: they accused political leaders of enabling sin and shunning away from God. Notable targets: presidential inaugurations of Barack Obama and Joe Biden. The protest events involving progressive politicians. Sporting events. Reason for protest: the WBC claims sports events distracted from God and promoted idolatry. Super Bowl. They protest outside of the stadiums. NASCAR races, criticized for being a form of sinful entertainment. Tragedies involving kids. They claimed children's death were punishment for parents or society's sins. Notable protests: the Amish school shooting in Nickel Lanes in 2006, Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. Religious gatherings. Reason for protests: the WBC targeted other religions and denominations for calling them false hypocritical. Protests outside Catholic churches, synagogues, and mosques. Criticism of Christian denominations like the Methodists and Lutherans. The WBC protesters have faced overwhelming condemnation from the public, including counter-protests, legislation limiting funeral protests, and widespread media criticism. Despite their efforts, their message has been widely dismissed as hateful, unrepresentative of the mainstream religious beliefs. The Westboro Baptist Church, known for its inflammatory protests, have targeted country singers Blake Shelton on multiple occasions, primarily criticizing his personal life and public personnel. October 3rd, 2013, Kansas City concerts. Planned protests. The WBC announced intention to picket Blake Shelton's concert at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, Missouri on October 3rd, 2013. They labeled Shelton a vulgar adulterer, condemning his divorce from his first wife and significant marriage to Miranda Lambert. Shelton responded advertently on Twitter stating, "Hey WBC, I got one more sin for ya. Bow me." He further criticized the group, calling them absolute, complete dipshits. February 26, 2016, Kansas City concert planned protest. The WBC announced plans to protest Shelton's concert at the Sprint Center in Kansas City on February 26, 2016. They accused him of promoting immorality through his music and personal actions. Shelton resorted on Twitter, "Great. Lots of my crew guys will be happy to see you arrive again." The response cited his dismissive attitude towards the group's actions. WBC criticism of Blake Shelton, accusations of adultery. The WBC condemned Shelton to divorce and remarriage, labeling him an adulterer and blaming such actions on societal acceptance of the same-sex marriage. Moral condemnation. They accused Shelton of leading his followers towards immorality, criticizing his influence on the country music scene. Public and media response. Fans and the general public largely supported Shelton, appreciating his candid and humorous rebuttals to the WBC's provocations. The exchange between Shelton and WBC received significant media attention, highlighting the ongoing tensions between public figures and extremist groups. The WBC, known for its extreme idolatry beliefs and provocative protests, has targeted the singer Pink due to her outspoken support for the LGBTQ plus rights and feminist themes in her music. Reason for protest: support for the LGBTQ rights. Pink has been a vocal advocate for the LGBTQ plus equality, both through her music and public statements. The WBC, which holds anti-LGBTQ plus views, condemns her for promoting what they consider sinful behavior. Feminist themes. Pink's music often includes themes of female empowerment, challenges traditional gender roles, which the WBC opposes. Notable protest. 2013 concert. In 2013, the WBC announced plans to picket Pink's concert, accusing her of promoting sin and filth through her music and public personality. They criticized her for using her platform to support the LGBTQ plus rights and for her feminist views. Counter-protest. Public media fans and the LGBTQ advocate groups has organized counter-protests to show support for Pink and the values she represents. Pink's reaction. Pink has addressed such criticism in her characteristic, bold manner, often using her platform to reaffirm her support for equality and love. The Westboro Baptist Church, known for its provocative protests, has targeted the country star Bad Paisley during his concert in Bottle Springs, Kansas on June 1st, 2014. The WBC accused Paisley of promoting a lifestyle they deemed sinful, specifically targeting his song "Alcohol." Demonstrating humor and composure, Paisley approached the protesters and took a selfie with them, capturing Westboro Baptist selfie, a Westboro selfie. Hopefully they can hear the show out here. We will play loud. Paisley's lighthearted response was widely praised, with many viewing it as an effective way to counteract the WBC's negative message. The Westboro Baptist Church, known for its provocative protests, has targeted the Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, due to the band's outspoken political views and advocacy for LGBTQ plus rights. Reason for protest: political statements. The Chicks have been vocal critics of certain political figures and policies, which WBC views as contrary to their beliefs. Support for the LGBTQ rights. The band's advocacy for the LGBTQ plus equality conflicts with the WBC's anti-LGBTQ plus stance. The WBC have picketed the Chicks concerts, condemning their political statements in support for the LGBTQ rights. Public media response. Support for the Chicks. Fans and advocacy groups have often organized counter-protests expressing solidarity with the band's views and opposing the WBC messages. The Chicks' reaction. The band has continued to express their political views and support for equality. Undeterred by the WBC protests. The Westboro Baptist Church, known for its provocative and inflammatory protests, has continued activities into 2025. Noteworthy recent developments including protests at educational institutions. Fredra High School in California on October 2024, the WBC announced plans to protest at Roosevelt High School in Fresno, citing presence of LGBTQ plus friendly clubs on campus. The response is over 100 counter-protests, including students and community members, gathered to oppose the WBC's message, emphasizing that hate is not welcome here in Fresno. Redley High School in California, October 2024. The WBC announced demonstration outside of Redley High School condemning the promotion of homosexuality and same-sex marriage. The city of Radley publicly denounced the group's incendiary and decisive messages, affirming the community's commitment in diversity and inclusion. Oso High School in Oklahoma, March 2024. Following the death of Nex Benedict, a gender non-conforming student who died after a high school altercation, WBDC announced plans to protest at Oso High School. The planned demonstration was met with significant counter-protests from LGBTQ plus advocate groups and community members who formed protective barriers to shield students from the WBC's hateful rhetoric. Community sponsors Patrol's intervention, March 2024. In anticipation of the WBC's project at Oso High School, the Patrol, an organization dedicated to shielding children from hate speech, organizations organized training and town hall meetings to prepare volunteers. They employed umbrellas and noise-canceling headphones to protect students and families from the WBC's hateful rhetoric. The WBC's activities continue to provoke widespread condemnation and mobilize counter-protests from communities advocating for inclusivity and intolerance. To effectively wrap up this topic, you can closing. The Westboro Baptist Church remains one of the most controversial organizations in the U.S., widely condemned for its inflammatory protests and extremist beliefs. Despite ongoing protests, public backlash and counter-protests has significantly diminished their influence over time. Internal fractures, such as departure of key family members, have further isolated the group. Reflective while WBC continues its protest, their hateful rhetoric has united communities, individuals in standing for love, tolerance, and equality. It is a reminder of the power of compassion in the face of hate. Hopeful as society progresses, the WBC's influence demolishes, showing that acceptance and unity are stronger than divisions. While the WBC's actions provoked outrage, the response often is counter them with peaceful resistance and promoting conclusively. That was the Westboro Baptist Church, and about the first episode of about the West Memphis 3 case. The DNA testing has been pushed back again. So there's no new date yet. But hopefully soon the DNA can be tested so the real killer can be caught. So goodbye.